Introducing Worlds Within, the tabletop RPG that puts you in control of your adventure your way. Whether you're an experienced gamer or just starting out, this game is tailored to your imagination. In Worlds Within, you can be the silent hero with magical music, a genetically engineered super soldier battling through a grim dark universe, or even a humble rancher facing a quirky Armageddon of farm animals. Your story, your choice. With simple rules and limitless possibilities, it's designed for 2 to 5 players and works with any setting or character. Ready to embark on your journey? Join our community, team up with friends, and start crafting your world at worldswithin.net. When you back our Kickstarter, you'll gain complete access to the Worlds Within rulebook, the abridged guide for quick reference, character sheets, pre-made creatures, items and abilities, and an intuitive roll chart for streamlined gameplay. Don't miss your chance to be part of this gaming revolution. Visit worldswithin.net and support our Kickstarter today. Your adventure begins here.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to HMP. I hope you've waxed the top of your delivery van because on this episode, we're reviewing the Werewolf classic Teen Wolf from 1985. I'm Adam Portress, and joining me today, he's currently in the bathroom having an existential crisis. Sweet Johnson Kovacs from the internet.
Don't come in, Dad.
And he's gone from looking like Scotty to looking just like his dad, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and hey, Chuck, it's your cousin Martin Berry, or is it Marvin Berry? Anyway,
Marvin Berry.
That's
Come
a different
on.
movie, same year, same werewolf.
Oh, it's all been the same this month here over at HMP because we have gone on the once bitten train here, and we are up to Teen Wolf from 1985, the biggest movie to come out of 1985, if I'm not mistaken, right? Oh wait, no, that was the other Michael J. Fox movie.
Yeah,
I
that was
apologize.
the other one.
Bright Lights, Big City, right?
Man, my 1985, Michael J. Fox just getting it done
On fire.
Unreal. We'll get to all of that good stuff. But before we do want to say a giant thank you to the people that support this show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those people get pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and you guys help support this program. And one of those supporters over at patreon.com/HMP has started a little Kickstarter himself. Go check out Worlds Within, as you heard at the promo at the top of the show. This is a new tabletop RPG, and I don't want to get too far into too much of the stuff, but they're doing some great stuff over there. I'm going to back this thing. They're about 25% up funded right now and everything. And especially if you're into RPGs and stuff like that, they've got some really cool rewards in with this system and stuff like that. I want to get one of the ones with the books in them because like
Hey,
the
Adam,
little
where
hardcore
did you
books.
get, speaking of Worlds Within, in that commercial at the top, where did you find that voiceover talent?
Oh, that was just some local jerk named Adam.
I couldn't tell. I guess you modulated the voice, I guess.
I modulated the voice.
He does that totally in his larynx.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
he's got range.
That is impressive.
Every now and then, you have to go to the bathroom.
Why the choice to modulate the voice is my question.
I guess technically because it's not my Patreon per se, and the way the copy was, and I just wanted to be a good guy and not sully anything and put my stank on it for anybody.
I see. So there's a level of shame involved. And from your side of things, the level of shame.
Oh, yeah. I don't want Derek to be like, hey, listen, why did you put you in there? I know I said, can you read this? But I know what he meant. He meant, can
you have the
someone
best
else...
speaking voice of any of us. I mean, you are the right choice. That is the way to go.
I wanted it to be fun. And you know what looks like fun? Worlds Within. Patreon, go check it out. I'm going to put a link in the show notes and everything, so you can go link on that. And Derek, these guys have put together some really interesting stuff. Watch their Kickstarter video. If that doesn't kind of get you excited in this, move on to something else. But if it does, my God, just back these guys. I'm going to back. I'm not sure what level, but I'm definitely going to get up there. So because I want some of them physical copies of stuff, because that's kind of the guy I am.
It is.
So, and also, again, if you can't support us over at patreon.com/HMP like our good buddy Derek does, and that's why I'm doing it, because Derek has supported us for so bloody long that he said, hey, I got an ask for you, and here I am, baby. Go get it. Links in the description. But we also got an iTunes review. If you can't go over and support us over at Patreon, the least you can do is give us an iTunes review, 5 stars, aka a humdinger.
Humdinger.
And this one comes to us from Manny Ortiz 16. It's 5 stars, titled A Humdinger. Well, there you go. And it reads as follows: I discovered you guys through the excellent. Then I'm reading it like you wrote it, Manny. I'm just saying. I discovered you guys through the excellent Then Mandalorian. Oh, Then Mandalorian 30 Questions. I'm the dumb, not him. I'm slowly making my way through the backlog and greatly enjoy how you tie Stallone to everything. As do we, Manny. As do we. And if you want to be like Manny and all the other awesome people that dropped us a 5-star review, aka Humdinger, we'd really appreciate that. You can do it on Spotify too. You can't really write anything, but you can throw a 5-star there, and that means that somebody might find this program, if nothing else, by a little bit of an accident. So go ahead and help us.
You can write an original
there.
Song praising us and release it on Spotify.
Release it on Spotify, cut us in for 25% of the VIG, and we're good to go. Here is
and let me just say thank you, Manny. Thank you for writing that review.
Yeah, okay, fair enough, because we have done this in the past before, and then it's retrograde and come back and bitten us quite hard. So, yes, thank you, Manny. We love you very much. Thank you for your 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
I think that makes up for it. Let's get into it, fellas. Here's the IMDb plot line for Teen Wolf. As we all know, IMDb 100% correct in everything they say and or do. An ordinary high school student discovers that his family has an unusual pedigree.
Whoa!
Let me tell you, IMDb, you are something else. This is written by Jeff Loeb. Yeah, that Jeff Loeb.
Yeah.
Matthew Weissman, directed by Rod Daniel. Bruce, what brought us to Teen Wolf? Of course.
Well, this was a big movie from when I was a kid. Actually, probably the first werewolf movie I ever got to see in a theater. And when I was 10 years old, there were 3 things I wanted more than anything else. I wanted to be good at basketball, I wanted to have a girlfriend, and I wanted to be a werewolf. And all 3 of those things
check
parts of this movie. In my mind, and I have not seen this movie in a very long time, but in my mind, this and Back to the Future entirely equal quality. Like from childhood, that is how I remembered it.
Yeah,
that's so funny, man, because that is the exact same experience that I have, except from watching it this week.
Yes.
Well, let me sell in case you've never seen or heard of this Teen Wolf before, let me sell everybody on it, because this sucker's got everything. We start on a white title sequence on a black background. That means that you've got a really expensive film working. Or maybe just the opposite. We got sweaty, dreamy slow-mo, just like Grandma used to make. We got the island of misfit basketball players introducing Pee Wee Herman's nemesis, Mark Holton, but you probably know him more as Francis. We've got Styles, who I imagine was what Sean was like in high school, mostly just because he wore those 1985 outfits in 1995. You know how it is.
Yes.
What do you get when you can't get Jay Thomas? That's right, you get the Kmart Jay Thomas, Jay Taurus. Ooh, so close. By the by, kids, your coach should not be noticing your puberty turn, just so you know. Perhaps this is also the reason why in the late 90s we didn't shower after gym. I want you to think about that for a second. We got a dad that looks like every other dad ever, a drama teacher like any other, but maybe a little less gay. Mock robbery, glowing eyes, van surfing, a shoulder-to-shoulder party that I've never experienced. Bathroom transformation, Jerry Garcia, with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, they actually say that line in this movie. We got Canadian sorries, doze off, freak out, and an Adam favorite. Charles Chaplin, floor footwork, ain't nothing in the rule book saying a werewolf can't play basketball. We take a trip to Montage Alley with Citaspell. won't you? We talked the virtues of the theater family, bowling, the Bee Gees sound alike, a journey sound alike. The only money spent in this movie was for the Beach Boys. Money well spent, if you ask me. We got a rip off of the Thriller dance, pee in your pants, and of course, the big game. Not the basketball game. The game of spot the dude's dong in the background. This movie's got everything.
I like that game there you mentioned at the end. And boy, we start off here. We start off in basketball, but they're in a gym with no crowd at all. And this really does kind of remind me of high school. I know we mentioned maybe in the Dinger Zone or in some of the pre-show how my old high school basketball uniform looked almost exactly like these Teen Wolf uniforms do.
Length and everything, kids. Picture it.
And the gymnasium that we played in was just like this. And when we had games, there were about this many people there and they were this interested. I love the idea that the coach wants to go ahead and forfeit so they can beat traffic on the way home.
Yeah, they can beat traffic.
This team is so bad they're playing before rush hour. Like my school was bad and small, but at least we didn't play till after supper time.
We got to get this losing over at 3:10.
I gotta say, growing up and watching this movie, because I watched this movie probably 2 or 3 times as a kid. If you were to ask me who my favorite character was in this movie, I would either say Scott or Styles. But as an adult, my favorite character in this movie is the basketball coach. And it's not even close.
Absolutely. The PE teacher nails what it is to be an adult human. And I think that this basketball coach, this PE teacher has definitely influenced a lot of like sitcom and comedy movie coaches that have come afterwards.
Without a doubt. There's also, to speak to the level of people in the stands at this game, one of the very nice touches is to have the mascot in costume sitting on the bleachers, like almost like passed out. It is so funny. It is such a nice touch. And it's one of those things where, like, look, we don't have the money. Like, this movie, clearly they did not have any money because they're shooting in people's houses. They're, every streets are empty. However, it's such a nice touch in this basketball game to have, you got 10 people because the team is so bad, and the mascot in costume sitting on the bleachers. So funny.
This movie, the first thing that strikes me when it comes on is just how little money they had to make this. The budget's listed at $4 million. Half that at least is probably cast, right? Like Michael J. Fox is a big enough TV star. He's getting at least $1 million for this.
I don't think so. No, he
not
not
yet.
hit.
Not yet. He's not, because he isn't famous when they're. I mean, he's famous enough, but he isn't even famous enough getting cast in this movie because the change hadn't happened to Family Ties yet. Because Family Ties was one of those shows where it started out and people were like, "Hey, this show's pretty good." But it wasn't really high in the ratings. It's not until they moved the show to Thursday after Cosby Show where it becomes the second most popular show on TV. And by the time Michael J. Fox is in Teen Wolf, that change hasn't happened yet.
Oh man, I'm just kind of like reading the production thing real quickly while you were talking to sort of get the timeline on when this was made versus Back to the Future. But I guess when Meredith Baxter Birney got pregnant, Michael J. Fox was suddenly available, and that's why he's in this movie, maybe at a cheaper rate than he was getting when he was doing Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he was
pulling 18-hour days.
Yeah, he was doing doubles then. So
right. So I would imagine you'd have to be paid more for that than picking something up on the week off you got.
Where did you guys? How did you see this movie this weekend?
It's on HBO Max or Max or whatever it's called. That's where I watched it.
Because that's where I saw it too. And what I can't figure out is why the quality is so bad on this movie.
I don't know that this is ever real. Like, to
it
my
got a 4K release.
Did it?
Yeah,
I have not.
It's pretty recent, but it did get a 4K release because I looked into it after seeing that it looks like a VHS transfer.
Yeah, it's a little blocky. Sure.
This totally has what I call the after school special cinematography, which isn't really after school special, but that movie Lucas always felt so much like an after school special to me that anything that looks like it's shot in what I would call the Lucas style of cinematography, I call after school special. Mm-hmm. And this is absolutely that, just using the overhead fluorescent lighting in your high school kind of cinematography.
Yeah. There's also the other thing about this, because you trade off when it comes to certain aspects of watching an older movie, from the comedy movie from the 80s or 90s. The trade-off is the bad first. You're gonna get a gay slur in your comedy movie,
And a lot of it here.
But let's be honest, for the 80s, it's not as bad as it could be.
Well, it's pretty bad when your main character is using the F word. That's not great.
Particularly when this whole story is constructed so that it could work as a parallel for a child coming out and getting acceptance from their parent instead of what would have been expected. Like, I feel like that somebody wrote this story and then somebody else punched it up, and the person who punched it up missed the point from the person who wrote it.
Right.
Jeff Loeb, you missed the point.
I mean, to me, the point of this movie, just from the direction, seems to be about fathers and sons. The kind of seems to be what this movie is.
And of course, puberty.
And, well, of course, because every werewolf is just an allegory for boners.
Yeah.
But what I was trying to get to is
ginger snaps, but we'll get there next week.
What I was trying to get to is you have the trade-off of, you have gay panic happening, but the trade-off, the good side of this, is you got 35-year-olds in high school, which is my favorite thing about movies of the time.
So Styles, I had a cousin whose name was actually Scott. And whenever we would play Teen Wolf, he would still insist on being Styles, despite having the name Scott. Now, I'm not arguing, because you don't have to dig real deep into my psyche to know that I was going to identify with Scott in this movie. But my cousin honestly thought, like, Styles is what cool people are like.
Oh my God.
And even at 10 years old, I knew Styles was definitely not cool.
No.
Like, he's trying too hard. And this movie shows, like, he comes through with the keg, where if this is Fast Times at Ridgemont High, everybody's high-fiving him, and he rolls in, there's already a stack of kegs there. Like this movie does have a depth to the story that you wouldn't expect for how poor the character development is. Does that make sense? Because there's like almost no character development here. This is a morality play in 3 acts. You can tell Jeff Loeb wrote the core of it, but I'm not complaining, because it just works so well on so many ways as a first time thing. And when I say a first time thing, I don't necessarily mean it's the first time it ever happened in a movie, but it's the first time it happened in a movie that kids watch the way we watch Teen Wolf. All right. So archivists and historians can point out where everything I say is wrong here. But to me, it felt like this was the first time I see a werewolf who is actually maintaining his human psyche and ability to talk and can transition so smoothly. Like, to me, that was the first time, which suddenly takes the werewolf from a monster to a superhero. It goes from something to be afraid of to something to aspire to, because I made the joke about wanting to be a werewolf when I grew up. I never wanted to be a werewolf until I saw Teen Wolf, and then that's all I wanted to be. It made being a werewolf cool.
I mean, because obviously I'm a little younger than you guys, so like I didn't see this obviously till video and everything, but I must have watched it a gajillion times. This
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was one of my favorite movies growing up, and again, it's interesting coming from a kid who was scared of everything. So,
but this movie isn't scary.
But exactly,
so I get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
The movie's not scary or anything. So it was horror that was safe enough for me, Gotcha. And again, also being a very young kid at the time, and like there were some awakenings for young Adam with a lot of this thing going like, okay, all right, okay. Let's the drama scenes made little Adam sit up and go, oh, okay. This is interesting. I like this. What is this? And we haven't turned back since, I suppose. But I love it, and it was Styles. I thought was the coolest. I thought he was. I thought, like, this guy is awesome. And like today, I just see him as the guy who's the impossibly cool nerd, if you will. That like what a nerd would want his whole like high school thing to be about, but would never actually occur.
To me, he reads these days. I agree with you. When I was a kid, I thought Styles was cool, but as an adult, what he reads to me now is the character and the actor are always high on cocaine.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the 80s, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that idea. That makes sense. Now, watching this, the budget was $4 million on this. $4 million in 1985, obviously different than $4 million today. But watching this, I was thinking, thanks to digital audio, digital cameras, As long as you're comfortable with a little bit of a step down in name recognition of the cast, you can still get good actors. They're just not stars. You can still make this exact same movie for $4 million.
I think so.
The music in it's not expensive. In fact, in my mind, it had way better music in it than it actually
No,
has.
no,
Man.
literally, I thought so too. Literally, it is the Beach Boys is the only thing. Everything else is written for this movie.
It sure
And
feels like it.
I'd replace the Beach Boys with that Top Secret song "Skeet Surfing," and nobody had noticed it.
But honestly, it's like I'm telling you, that kind of the surfing on top of the stuff I wanted to do, like I was too chicken. I would never do it, but I wanted to do it so badly. I even had ideas of like anytime that like, 'cause, you know, as somebody who writes stuff every now and then, like you think like, oh, I've got an idea for a movie for like, you know, like with teens and stuff, I would be like, listen, if I'm writing this thing, I'm shoehorning in some way of somebody surfing on the top of something if it's involving teens, because it feels like the thing that I would have wanted to do, but never got a chance.
As a child, my uncle had an ice cream truck. And boy, you better believe that me and my cousin, the one who wanted to be Styles but was named Scott, you better believe we wanted to paint that up as the Wolfmobile and take that thing like wolf surfing through our neighborhood.
Well, you know that it's based on one of the writers' actual experience in college, that they would take their step van out and the fraternity he was in, they would surf on the top of the van.
And that's where it was comes John Landis.
That's where the idea came from in the first place. And it's one of those weird things where there's a few things in this movie that are taken from real life, which might explain why there's certain touches in this movie that speak to you specifically, Bruce. Like, you know, like one of the writers went to school with a girl named Boof. And so that's why that's why the name is in the movie.
For a million years, it seems like I've wondered, why the heck is this person named Boof?
Mm-hmm.
I also like it because this feels like, you know, with 1981 being the rebirth of the werewolf genre, this feels like the first one that they go back to Lon Chaney Jr., just some good makeup and prosthetics and let the actor act, you know, because we had all major puppets and Muppets and all kinds of just transformative beasts. And this is a nice little throwback.
Well, let's talk about that. What do you guys think about the styling and the makeup and everything? What do you think of the look?
Iconic, man. It is.
It looks great.
Iconic.
It looks great. And as a matter of fact, if you see something that looks like this later, you're like, well, that looks like they clearly are inspired by Teen Wolf. That's neat.
Yeah, it's so kind of the old Lon Chaney Jr. stuff and stuff. Like it looks somewhat similar to that, but also uniquely its own. And like you said, everybody's ripping it off afterwards because it kind of works, because it's not the super elongated, you know, snout and everything. It's just enough to remain that human ability, and also you can act with that sort of stuff going on as well. But
best werewolf costume in the history of cinema.
And I love the old school kind of transformations. We're transforming with cuts, and it's just like there's no reason to get wild. Let's just do what we gotta do.
Bladders. They do put a couple of air bladders because they're obligatory, but for the most part, man, they do this after school special style. I love it.
Yeah, you got a couple of things in there. You got to have those couple of money shots that you'll sprinkle, you know, in and out there just to make it seem like you're doing a whole hell of a lot more than you're actually doing. But most of it's just like close up of here, boom, boom, boom.
And you know, as my little hobby and stuff, I love talking about the really low bar stuff like Neil Breen, Donald Farmer, Tommy Wiseau. But you really can learn a lot from what, like, somebody who's good at what they're doing, but they don't have a ton of money to work with. Like, I think I can, you know, a person can learn a lot of tricks by watching this transformation here. You know, you're going to learn a lot more if you're out trying to make your YouTube video watching this one than you are by watching Rick Baker's genius at work.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I'm just going to need to funnel in all of my Rick Baker into this one thing. You don't have any of that. No one does.
I ain't even got half a Stan Winston, and I need 2 Rick Bakers? No way.
Can't trade for those.
Give me a Botine.
One thing I want to talk about, like just outside of like the regular, like the Beach Boy needle drop and the fake needle drops that were all just done by the score guys and everything. The score itself is so interesting and unique. The bing 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 bing, that kind of, it's no one else does that. It's so uniquely Teen Wolf. it almost doesn't belong, but it belongs so much at the same time. And it shouldn't work, but I like it so much because it's very odd. Nothing else sounds like that.
What do you think of the fake Randy Newman song in the middle of the movie?
That's why I was sitting there. I Shazammed that bad boy to try to be like, because this is clearly Randy Newman, and it's not. I'm like,
No.
and when you listen to it, no, it's somebody doing Randy Newman who's clearly writing something for this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, not for nothing,
There's
but it's
also
as
a
good as
song-
Randy Newman. I'll say it.
There's a song on the soundtrack, and the performing artists are listed as the Wolf Sisters. And you know that is some studio musicians that did not want their name anywhere near this thing.
Oh, no. You're not putting me on that one. No, sir. That's got to go on the resume somewhere. I'm not.
Now, do you guys already know the box office on this relative to the box office on Back to the Future?
I know for the month of August, Back to the Future was in, and that's August is when this movie came out. And Back to the Future came out in June or July, and had been out a couple of months. It was still
eighth week is when Teen Wolf comes out.
Still number one at the box office. Teen Wolf comes in at 11 for the entire month. I can't speak for the individual weeks, but
Teen Wolf debuted at number 2, behind Back to the Future at number 1. So that's just the opening weekend.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But in my mind, these are simultaneous phenomena to the kids in my elementary school. Like this, we're going back to school from summer break, and we're all riding high on Back to the Future. Next thing you know, you hit us with the Teen Wolf, and we're all just Michael J. Fox to death.
I think you could almost even start thinking that those movies are connected or intertwined or something if you're at that age where you just like it all amalgamates into one film.
I'll just say I never met somebody who saw one and didn't see the other.
Right.
But Teen Wolf did $30 million at the box office on a $4 million budget, whereas Back to the Future did closer to $400 million.
Mhm.
So I don't know what it is about my perception. I never realized that Back to the Future had 15 times the box office.
Well, your
Like, they felt
perception,
equal.
your perception is that you were a child. So, I mean,
Very true.
I mean,
even
that's why.
even sort of the cultural significance, it stuck around in our memories as being better than it was.
Oh, I think that I think that the telltale sign of something enduring far longer than another piece of pop culture is how often is that thing referenced? Like you can reference Back to the Future without ever having seen the movie. Whereas with Teen Wolf, that's damn near impossible.
Yeah, I think that's a good, valid argument. Yeah, because it's one of those things too that's just
I'm trying to think, and I'm sorry, I was silent there, kind of contemplating everything. The closest thing really to I just start saying it and people know exactly what I'm talking about and where it comes from is if you talk about the 3 things you need to know
the
in life.
coach. Yeah.
And that's it. I can't think of anything else that's terribly quotable. Even though I remember a lot of the moments, like you remember the surfing on the van, you remember the Civil War era werewolf. I mean, you remember a lot of the stuff, but the lines, it's only the line from the coach there.
Yep.
who, by the way, is snacking on some KFC in his office.
Oh, sir,
I love it.
Sir, let's go backwards on this. Because when Scott goes to talk to the coach after that first game, and the coach, for some reason, is shaving after the game is over.
Yeah.
It is such a bizarre choice. It is so funny. He's eating KFC in the coach's office, and then later on, he's eating an egg on the court where he's throwing the shells on the ground. He's eating a hard-boiled egg, and he's
that
shelling.
is the weirdest, but all like that is something where I feel like Tarsus just showed up on set and saw a hard-boiled egg at craft services and started ad-libbing that. There's no way anybody planned for that.
It's such a bizarre, funny, great choice, especially for this character who's from outer space. Like I just love, like, every single time he's on screen, if it's him and Michael J. Fox in the same scene, the entire thing is just elevated. And it's like, oh, I'm watching a real movie. And then there's times where you're watching the movie where you're like, well, I'm clearly watching something made for no money.
Like some of the stuff with the coach, I feel like this is outtakes from Better Off Dead.
It's so good. It's just so good.
Now, what did you guys think about the love triangle? And at the time, I think this was a little fresher to have the love triangle be a guy with two girls. It seems like so often it was the girl picking between the cool guy and the dorky guy.
It's so crazy because one girl is a Playboy playmate, I believe, and the other one looks like my mom's best friend who was divorced and would sometimes say things to me that would make me feel weird.
So I'm kind of getting like you're saying they're pretty equally matched.
They're right on par.
It's just a weird dichotomy that like I get that Boof is the unconventionally attractive girl, and so that's why he's able to look past her. But there's also something about that actress where she looks like she's 42 and has two kids. Like
But I mean, as a guy who lived through 1985, if you're 4'7", you and there's a girl who's interested, you just take her up on it.
What if you're Michael J. Fox?
If you're Michael J. Fox in high school in this show, yeah, you absolutely need to pay more attention to Boof, because that's I mean, even as the wolf, it's still the best he can get.
And the funny thing is like you just look at it and like, oh, you want to just smack this character in the face and just be like, this is the most obvious thing in the world. What's wrong with you, you big fat dummy? It's like this girl's obviously, this is your layup. This is easy. And like this girl actually wants you. The other one couldn't care less if you were on fire.
And I like it that Boof is the girl that just comes over and plays a pickup game of hoops in the driveway with your dad on occasion.
It's like she's not dropping any hints. She's around all the time. She shows up on your
hey,
porch, my guy.
I want to show my boys, hey, if you're going to date somebody who'll drop by and keep me company when I get old and senile. Date somebody who wants to come hoop it up with your dad every once in a while.
She's just looking for an excuse to be around. That's all it is.
Can I tell you guys my crackpot theory on this movie after having watched it this weekend?
Okay.
I had never noticed this before, but Scott's mom isn't around anymore, right? And I think the way that the actor who plays Scott's dad is playing this movie, is playing this character, is that he accidentally werewolf killed the wife.
You think
Because
he
there is
accidentally killed her?
Yes, because there is a level of sadness that the actor is acting in this movie, playing Scott's dad, that really feels like something horrible has happened.
Here is the conspiracy theory, the story behind the story that I've embraced, is that she died because a human woman cannot give birth to a werewolf without it just tearing her all up inside. And that way, both the father and the son have a reason to feel a little bit of guilt about her death.
Oh, wow.
That's an interesting enough idea. I like that. But I mean, we never, because part of me like would think, oh, maybe it's almost insinuated, but it's not, that the principal guy that dad kind of bullies there at the end and everything, that perhaps, maybe he something happened where she ended up dying on account of him, but that doesn't really happen.
Now, what do you think about the generational kind of hatred that's shown here? Like you brought up the principal there. The principal's tough on Michael J. The vice principal, I'm sorry, which is weird. The high school's got 7 students and they need 2 principals. But anyway, the vice principal was like, didn't like his dad. So now he takes it out on him. And I don't know if you guys grew up in small enough town, small enough school. I don't know that either of you ever went to the same school your parents did, but I did go to the same school my mom did. And sometimes I thought there was a little bit of that generational BS going on.
Well, my brother and sister had to go, oh, you're Adam Portress's sibling? Okay.
That's what my sisters got too.
Yeah. But no, it wasn't family. It was more just reputational of the family themselves, and not really me. Let's be frank. But then,
me too.
Mark stepped up the game though. In middle school, Mark stepped up the game big time. We can't take away his victories for screwing up, being sent back home from Washington D.C. He didn't listen to the show.
Wow,
that's
that
a
hasn't
big
happened
one.
since that time I went and Spider-Man was swinging around everywhere.
Yeah, he was on a school trip, and they sent him home via Greyhound.
Well, he had to do something bad to get slapped on the bus.
Him and his buddy got slapped on a Greyhound and drove home from Washington D.C. to Charlotte, and it was, let me tell you, that trip home I hear was uncomfortable. Yeah, he'd laugh at that story though.
Wow.
All right. Well, man. So here's the thing that really confused me the first time I watched this movie. It makes more sense now in adulthood. But whenever he decided he didn't like being the wolf anymore and he had to go back and be Scott, I thought that was the dumbest thing ever as a kid. Because once I'm a wolf, man, until every enemy I have has been smoking, there is no going back to human form. I got to win me some of them rings, you know. I got to go to the NBA.
I like how it is like Sean said, this is that morality play that's there. It's the whole time, and it's while a PG rated movie that would probably be PG-13 today on account of PG-13 didn't exist in 1985.
Well, it's also based on the simulated werewolf sex.
Yeah, there's a little some of that.
The implied werewolf sex that has happened.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where like I also look back and go, how did they let us watch a lot of this stuff with a lot of the things going on in this film?
The werewolf sex is so weird that I forgot we're supposed to believe these are high school kids, like 16-year-olds or something. Like today, everyone would really be saying, hey, it's inappropriate to have these underage people in the sex scene. Then it's more like, do we really want to show somebody doing it with a dog?
And then the studio was like, you have to cut that. We're like, we already shot it.
You have to cut it, put it in a plain brown envelope, send it to this address.
That's what these producers do. They're sick, the lot of them.
But yes, I wanted to be a werewolf forever if I could have been a werewolf.
But again, that's the good point of the entire thing, is that it just shows like, hey, you've got it, but it follows it beat by beat. But again, it doesn't, to me at least, it doesn't feel shoehorned. I mean, not in a bad way, at least.
Now, I do like the idea that, and I know, you can point out that, no, this isn't the case, but it certainly feels like it when you're watching it, that they only play one basketball team all season. And they just keep playing the Dragons over and over again as it feels.
You got two outfits. That's it.
Did either of you ever like play in a youth sports league that was really pathetic, like only had a very small number of teams?
Not well. I mean, just like we played like church basketball and stuff like that. So you're limited to probably like 10 local churches within the driving distance.
That's a very robust league. When I played Babe Ruth baseball, we were supposed to have 4 teams, but we only had enough kids show up for 3 teams. But then one of the teams dropped out. So we had 2 teams.
Holy cow.
And we played each other every weekend, doubleheader. Man, it is miserable. There's no joy for anyone when you just keep playing the same team over and over again.
Boys, I know those last 9 innings were really tough, but these next 9 are really, we're gonna bring it back. Don't worry.
They beat us every single time. We were like 0-20. But anyway, we only lost to one team.
Hey, listen.
We're runners up in the league. What can I say?
Hang your hat on that one at least.
But yeah, they play the Dragons over and over again. Mick, it took me a while to figure out that Mick did not go to their school, which is kind of weird. Maybe she shouldn't have been dating somebody from the rival school.
That's another thing.
And also, he's always there. He's always at the high school for some reason. It took me a bit to figure that out too.
I wonder, is this intramurals? Like, are they hiding the fact from us that none of, like, you notice that even the good players don't really look like good basketball players? So maybe the secret is that these kids don't realize that it's all intramurals for this one school, that they're not a real team.
Also, there's a ton of not a ton. There's a handful of African-American kids that go to that high school. Why aren't they on this basketball team?
You see one on the court the entire movie, if memory serves. I remember seeing one. That was it. And it's just, but most of the time it's just goofy white guys who cannot dribble or shoot. And that shooting, ooh, goodness, it looks like a toddler
and have never
does.
clearly had never played basketball until this movie.
But for some reason, Francis Buxton's jump shot just seemed right.
No.
Like if Francis Buxton, so Porky Turner played basketball on our team. And he was called Porky for a reason. He was very similar.
Loved bacon.
Very similar in
didn't wear pants.
Just gloves.
He wasn't quite as thin as Francis Buxton, but he's probably a little bit taller. I don't know. But anyway, he shot very much like Francis Buxton.
Whew.
It was just right. And they go in. You know, nobody nobody guards the 400-pounder. They're like, I'll leave him open at 32 feet. And then they regret it as he shoots from his belly button.
There are some oddballs like that out there who have like wildly untraditional, shooting styles and stuff like that, and playing styles that like they never make the show or nothing like that. But you see them like playing like weird street ball and stuff like that, and like every now and then you'll come across that, but it ain't normal.
That's what the NBA's missing. More chubby point guards.
So somebody doing foul shots granny style. That's what I want to see in the NBA.
It'd be like if there's a new rule that your point guard cannot be over this tall and must weigh over this much.
So I've got a ton of notes that I took on this.
Let's hear
on
them.
this one.
Let's hear them.
All right. So and we could just start discussing, I guess. So note number one. I would very much like to live in this town, live in that house, and work at that hardware shop.
Then you would want to move to the place where I grew up, because so much of this movie looks, because it's 1985, but my town was also a decade behind the time. So in 1995, it's going to still look like this. That small kind of town thing. My middle school was a former high school, so it kind of looked vaguely familiar to this school.
Did either of you have any guesses at what state this is supposed to be in?
Nebraska.
I saw a Nebraska thing hanging up on the wall, and that's what I'm basing it on.
Yep.
I
looked it up because I was like, are they supposed to be there, or is that just the house they're in?
Yeah, because I kind of thought like maybe the dad's just a Nebraska Huskers fan, but I think they're supposed to be in Nebraska, given that there's everybody's at the football game and nobody's watching hoops.
These all seem like Nebraska kids to me.
Well, I mean, I looked it up that they're supposed to be in Nebraska, because one of the things about this movie is that several times you're in a scene where it's clearly the real stuff that's in like a house, or there's that one scene, the gay panic scene where Styles and Scott are speaking to each other.
That's someone's garage. Yeah.
That is literally someone's garage. That is not dress. Like maybe they put a thing here and there.
But for the most part, that's what they walked into that morning.
Yes, that is a real garage. And so I kept running into that. Like when you see Scott's dad and Booth playing in the driveway and they're playing hoop, that is someone's real driveway and real garage, because it's so beat up and weathered.
It's kind of janky and not done super well, so it looks like it's like it's supposed to.
You're right. It looks real. It's something that would never exist in a movie of this level today. You know, like somebody would have an issue, somebody holding money, somebody who would come in and be like, well, I got to rub my butt on something. Oh, I know. I'll say that the garage needs to be repainted, like stuff like that. Yeah. And so just things like that, which add an authenticity to this movie that I think is sorely lacking in movies now. It's part of the charm of this movie. Another note I have, is there a better everyman in mid 1980s than Michael J. Fox?
He's kind of perfect, because like he's what you want to be, but like he's never, like he's not too good looking. But he is a good looking guy, but he's not so good looking. And the fact that he's a tiny guy helps that a little bit, and kind of makes him that like little everyman that's there. But yet you were always, no matter what the movie or show is, you're always rooting for the guy.
And there's an earnestness to his performances where it almost feels like he's like a little Canadian Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a great comparison, because they both have that earnestness of character when they're doing stuff that you kind of just automatically buy whatever it is that they're doing, even though it's not too wildly dissimilar to the other things that they've done.
Yeah. Yep. Next note. It is incredible that every second of the van surfing is practical. That they're not on a green screen. There's not screens behind them as they shoot even an ounce of this. This is all done practically. And it is insane. And it's even more insane that the actor playing Styles is doing every bit of that stuff.
That was going to be my next question. It's like, okay, if it's done practical, I get it for the time that happened, but it becomes a big deal if he Tom Cruised it. And it sounds like he did.
He did.
What's it like? Yeah, I mean, obviously Michael J. Fox is not cutting backflips on the top of the
Well,
van.
Michael J. Fox is not. Michael J. Fox is barely on top of that roof.
Oh yeah, he's in those close-up shots, and then everything else is woo. That's Gary.
His insurance claim would be a little bit more expensive than Styles, and they know it.
Oh, but let me tell you something. When they roll into that party, he slides off of the top and sits in the back of the. That is so friggin' cool.
That is really cool, and it is like you're reading my notes, Adam, because that is where the biggest chunk of my notes are. It's about the party.
Because the party's insane. I've never been like the closest I've ever been to something like this was in my 20s, so I couldn't imagine.
I really thought high school parties were going to be like this. I remember talking to the same cousin Scott, like, boy, I can't wait till high school when we go to these parties. He's like, one time I snuck into one and it was exactly like it is in the movie. You see, I showed up and just had my sunglasses and my dad's coat and I looked really old. So they let me party with them and I got really drunk and made out with a real woman.
So my friend Noah. That sounds exactly like some crap he would try to pull.
My first note, we're going to start it off easy. Why are so many people wearing sunglasses at this party?
Because it's so cool, bro.
There's so many. I mean, I like a third of the crowd, and there's probably like, let's be charitable and say 75 people in this scene.
Now, not in real life, but in reflections of real life that naive people like me thought were real life, cheap sunglasses in a novelty design were instant personality. Like you put those on, everybody knows everything they need to know about.
Oh, especially in the 1980s, you got your Meshack Taylor going around with crazy shades on.
Oh boy, you're not kidding.
Yeah, so
some mannequin Meshack Taylor.
A little later on, you get your Dwayne Waynes.
Yeah, boy, the 80s and 90s were just rife with wild glasses, weren't they?
So, next question about the party: why are there two people just sitting on the roof of the house? They're just there. Like there's no reason for them to be there. They're just hanging out.
Well, that's where you do your drugs, is up on the roof, as far as I know.
Smoking. That way that nobody smells it.
But everyone is doing drugs and smoking at the party already.
But you're antisocial.
They didn't know that. They're clearly not good at making decisions if
Stop
they're doing
making
drugs.
excuses for those two roof sitters.
Maybe they're just roofers who didn't get finished in time and they don't want to disturb the party, so they wait until it's over to come down.
They really like that song.
Okay, so here's my next note. I went to, because this is true, I went to like 1,000 house parties in high school, and I even threw one. What's up with the two people smothered in whipped cream and bound together on the floor? What is that game called?
I was trying to think of this because I was like, you remember like people writhing around on the floor. I remembered that and stuff. But at the same time, too, I was like, my thought before this was like, boy, I'm going to finally find out what those people were doing. And still, I do not know.
Sean, I'm going to tell you right now what I think happened. Somebody forgot to bring the kiddie pool and they just improvised. I think it was supposed to be wrestling in a kiddie pool with whipped cream. Somebody forgot the kiddie pool and it was like January, so you couldn't just run out to the local store and get one. So they just had to improvise by rolling around on the floor.
I hope it wasn't like real whipped cream or something like that, because that milk stuff, boy, you're gonna have some problems.
Bad news.
It ain't gonna be good.
You put dairy in strange areas, bad things happen.
Shaving cream better be the only option.
They knew you use shaving cream for that.
You would hope, but then again, like you said, they may have forgotten the kiddie pool. What makes you think that they might have remembered the actual proper shaving cream as well?
All we got handy is some Elmer's glue. Sure, that won't cause any problems.
Just writhe around in it. It'll be fine.
This is my last party note, which is the girl in lingerie at the party. And like, there's a million drunk dudes around her, all of them horny high school kids.
Yeah, it's like this whole thing is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you're asking for very bad things to happen.
Cops need to come and break this party up toot sweet, because it's no good, no bueno.
There was no party lit enough that any girl would let me chase Jello.
By the way, first and foremost, let's talk about that for half a second. What a glorious bit they give this man. They're like, you know what? We're going to give the big guy, he's going to have his own little moment in this and, take that lady back. And guess what? She's all about it. I love that. I thought that was so
Was
nice.
she all about it? I thought she was screaming.
She seemed very excited to be doing all that stuff.
I think she was supposed to be frightened by him.
Disagree. She got his name. She was excited when she got that name and pulled over. He tried to play off like he wasn't. Trust me, them two got it on. Just based upon what I've seen.
Good for Francis Buxton.
I think he's, not too bad for that guy.
So more notes here. Mid transformation, Scott looks like the Geico caveman.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As a matter of fact, it makes me wonder if the same guy who did special effects on this worked on those commercials.
Very possible.
Mm-hmm.
Next note, this movie goes against a ton of werewolf lore, but the biggest departure might be werewolf breakdancing.
It's canonically excellent breakdancers.
I love how he just breakdances in the middle of the hall, not for nothing, and really kind of to show off to the black kid.
Yeah,
because he's just like, "Hey, wasn't that slick?" And the black guy's like, "Hey, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty dope." And then that's the end of the scene. And that's the only interaction with a person of color we have in this movie, I think.
Now, I will say, as a kid, I did wonder if being a werewolf to these movie makers was the same as being black, because they make him good at breakdancing and basketball, and I feel like the people who made this weren't super sensitive.
I don't know. I just think that was that maybe. I'm not saying it's not impossible. It's certainly possible, but I don't know that these guys have that kind of brain. I think that they are so surface leveled. Like this werewolf movie good. People like werewolf. Right. I think it's more that.
It feels more like werewolf as superhero, really.
Yes, which is makes sense with Jeff Loeb, I think.
Yeah,
and I do like the Saturday Night Fever kind of reference there when he's getting the old disco suit on, which by
that suit
was not cool to anybody but me.
That suit is so awesome.
And I am sure he did his own hair in that because it looked terrible after he was finished with it. It's just like, dude, you look so much worse than you normally do.
If I'm ever skinny again, I'm going to dress like a Teen Wolf at the dance every day of my life.
Hey, listen, you can live your dreams right now, baby. You ain't got to worry about that.
Also, I don't know if you guys clocked this or not, but most of the characters in this movie wearing Adidas.
I did notice that. I was just like, I noticed it finally on the jersey, kind of towards the end of the whole show there and everything, and I was just like, oh, there we go.
A win or two to be seen.
No, they have nice stuff.
Not on this bad boy. Yeah, Lewis is wearing some Sambas. Teen Wolf has got on white, black striped Adidas. Styles at one point is wearing some Adidas. It is an Adidas show.
Cornucopia.
Mm-hmm. This movie.
Okay, I'm sorry, I hate to circle back, but it's funny that it's an Adidas show because, of course, Phil Knight, Oregon State, the Beavers, and they did use Oregon State's logos on their uniforms.
They do, and they do have Nike jerseys. I did notice that.
Yeah, a very Nike thing to do in an Adidas movie.
This movie's script, the script of this movie is beat for beat Save the Cat, except it was written probably 10 years before Save the Cat was ever published.
Yeah.
I mean, literally every beat in if you've ever read the book Save the Cat, which is basically it's the book you read if you have screenplays already written and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with your screenplays that are already written. And this movie, it's almost like the author watched Teen Wolf and went, this is the perfect script.
That's it. I love that idea.
It does all the right things, exactly the right time that they're supposed to happen and stuff. Like you're absolutely correct. This is a screenwriting crash course of like, how do we get all of this information across? How do we bring the people along with these characters on this journey? And you're right, it's beat for beat, but like when it's done well enough, you don't care.
screenplay, definitely less than 90 pages, I'd say. So very efficient. Yeah.
I mean, you've got the turn at the end of the first act when he turns into the werewolf, and it turns out his dad is also a werewolf. That's the end of the first act. Like, it literally is just like bam, bam, bam. Dark Night of the Soul, bam. Like it's all of these moments are in Save the Cat, and it's just so crazy how beat for beat it is. Anyway, the line we already said: always get at least 12 hours sleep, never play cards with a guy who has the nickname of the city, and never go near a girl who has a tattoo of a dagger anywhere on her body.
You stay by those rules. You got it made, kid.
So
It's all cream cheese from there.
so spectacular.
And he ain't wrong.
Adam, this one's mostly for you. How badly did they want to recreate Thriller in at this school dance?
So
And they just couldn't do it.
when
This was also a time where I thought someday when I was in high school, I could just randomly make up a dance and people would start doing it with me. How disappointed I was when that day came.
come
How
on,
much-
participate.
How much of your frustration with the way humans act is based upon you watching movies and TV shows and them not behaving like that?
110%.
Is it really?
I mean, it's my only interaction with people. When I grew up, I grew up almost like a feral child, alone, locked up in a can with a TV. Yeah, so much of it is that way.
This isn't the Andy Griffith I know. What? But to me, I went back to this so many times as a kid, and it's funny. I don't think I'd seen it since I was trying to like put together the math and stuff, and I want to say 2005 was the last time I saw this movie. Because I remember also me and my brother had a front projector in our living room at the time. And so a 106-inch screen. So I'm watching Teen Wolf. And at that point, like at the end of the movie, I'm like, all right, everybody be talking about it. Let's see if we can see the dong. And so, then you pause and stuff and sure shooting. There we go.
Me and my friends just took people's word for it.
Well, listen,
I
trust and
if we wanted
confirm
to
is
see
what I want to
dong,
say.
we
You
had
want to make
much more reliable sources.
I can just look. I got firsthand experience over here. But it's one of those things that you hear left and right, and then you go like, all right, let's see if this is real. And the funny part is like it's still, even back then, looked at like it does now, which is kind of crummy looking. I do want to see not for that particular reason, but I do want to see a higher res version of this anyways, because it's kind of crappy looking on the digital right now.
Any experience from you guys with the animated show that was a spinoff, the animated cartoon?
I
guess
watched,
that's redundant.
I watched maybe 2 episodes of it as a kid and was like, not for me.
I don't remember.
I watched
it.
every episode. Probably didn't like it very much. I don't remember a single thing about it, but I was one of those people that I think I decided I was going to watch it, so I watched it. There was also a Wolfman Jack cartoon around this time where Wolfman Jack had a werewolf connection of some sort, and I think I preferred that one.
I remember watching. I remember having watched the show, but never specifically anything about it. Just kind of like the general colors and ideas, if you will.
What about Teen Wolf 2? Did you guys go to the movie theater to see Teen Wolf 2?
I didn't see it
on HBO.
I didn't see it in the theater. I watched it on VHS later.
I don't know how much money that did in the theater, to be honest.
I don't think it did well. Michael J. Fox did not return, and it was a movie that made me think that boxers in college were a big deal. Like when I went to college, I thought I had to be all up on my local. If you go to Marshall, you better know their boxing team inside and out.
I do. I do want to go back because I don't think I've ever even seen the sequel, to be honest.
And then it's like back to school. I really thought that my college diving team was going to be a bigger deal than they were.
There's a very fun story. There's a celebrity, I can't remember who it is, but they're talking about some celebrity benefit for whatever it is that Michael J. Fox has. I can't remember the name of it.
Parkinson's.
Yes, Parkinson's. And so it's this thing, fundraiser for Parkinson's, to fight Parkinson's, and it's not pro Parkinson's. Anyway, the
anti-polio. Sorry.
So and he knows Michael J. Fox, and so Michael J. Fox asks him to show up, and he learns that Michael J. Fox gets off his meds so that he's more disheveled during these events, just so people can see how awful this disease actually is. Like, I'm not on any meds right now. This is what would happen if there was no research at all into Parkinson's. Like, he says that on stage.
Yeah.
And as they're walking around, Michael J. Fox is showing him around, and he's having a tough time because he's not on his medication at the time of this story. He's walking around, and as they're walking around, they run into Jason Bateman, and without missing a beat, not a single beat, as fast as lightning, Jason Bateman says to this celebrity, "Hey, you're standing around two Teen Wolves right now. It must be pretty special." Just walks off. How great is that?
That's pretty sweet.
That's $1 million moment.
How great.
And I mean, let's talk about the guy for a second, because just like what a national, worldwide treasure Mr. Michael J. Fox is. It's like
feels like you're starting to dip into my stand-up routine here, but okay,
man. Yeah,
we'll go.
He's as at least as big a national treasure as you, my friend. What you are to North Carolina, he is to planet Earth. I'll put it to you that way. There you go.
Agreed. And he is far more beloved than me, even in North Carolina.
But man, oh man, just like seeing that guy and like the struggles and stuff that he's gone through, and the face forwardness of it all that he has, it just like it makes you respect the guy even more. And it's just like he's always been good. He's always been good. Like, and it's
even in terrible movies, like I would say Casualties of War is a very bad movie.
Yeah.
But he's good in it. The Secret of My Success is a terrible movie, but he's good in it.
Mm-hmm.
Bright Lights, Big City, another bad movie.
Another bad movie. Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those performers.
And then when you give him something that's that's the top notch and stuff, it's just like, wow, watch him fly.
Now, did you guys ever watch Spin City? Because I did not watch that at all.
Oh yeah,
and that was kind of the last thing he really did before his illness was known.
Yeah, he was great in that show. The whole show was great. That one of those like great ensemble kind of casts and everything, and where everybody's got a little bit of funny going on and stuff. I remember liking the show well. And Richard Karn in that program.
Was the show what I found out like the natural choice. If you can't have Michael J. Fox, everyone's natural number two is Charlie Sheen. They're basically the same actor.
That was an odd choice at the time. Let's be honest, but that's when
at least they didn't go with the guy that they kept trying to shove down our throats, Andy Dick, which they tried to make Andy Dick a thing for so very long.
I think that career-wise and everything, it would have really worked out well if they just went after Bateman.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
I mean, just make that his thing. Him and Sarah Chalke know their lane.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Michael J. Fox's one of his best roles is latter day Michael J. Fox. He's on The Good Wife. I think I've spoken about the show before.
Mm-hmm.
He plays an opposing attorney who is just the slimiest slime bag who ever slimed, and uses his Parkinson's to his favor. And it's like, look, Judge, I have a really hard time with certain aspects of my condition. Like, he does things like that. It is incredible.
I love when people when that's kind of a thing where somebody with a disability will use that to just kind of snow over everybody. I love that kind of stuff.
It's so good, and like the main character on the show, you just see her seething with rage. It's so great.
Got to watch that Apple documentary on Michael J. Fox. I hear it's really good.
I'm so concerned. I don't want to see it. It's one of those things.
Because it feels like your heart's going to get ripped out while you're watching it, because that's what it feels like to me.
Yes.
I'm sorry to ignore you guys, but I've been really pulled into basically a plot synopsis of his time on Spin City.
Okay. Let's have it.
He eventually met a senator from Ohio named Alex P. Keaton. His therapist was played by Michael Gross.
Nice.
And he makes a lot of references to somebody named Mallory who never shows up.
Nice.
Oh, and then one time his mother appeared on the show, portrayed by Meredith Baxter. It was
Oh,
no
that's
longer
great.
Bernie at that point. Yeah.
Right. That's really great because I know that it's good to know that Meredith Baxter only had a problem with the producers, not with the actor. That's really great.
Oh, I didn't even know that backstory.
Well, the whole thing was, it was supposed to be a vehicle for Michael Gross and Meredith Baxter. And little do you know, you've got, Hollywood's next charm machine as your oldest son on the show. And, he becomes the breakout star. And their deal was, because the producers kept having to pay Michael J. Fox more and more, that they had to make at least $1 more than any other actor on the show. And so they held the producers to that. And the producers were like, are you kidding me?
Well, the producers, they knew what they were doing. This was never going to be about Meredith Baxter and Michael Gross, because the person, their first choice was Matthew Broderick. Second choice is Michael Fox. You don't cast those people in that role unless you plan big things for that role.
True.
I mean, even when Matthew Broderick's not like a superstar famous, he's got that charisma just like Michael J. Fox. He's got that that Canadian boy riz, even if he's not Canadian.
One last thing about the Teen Wolf movie here is that, it's my last note, is that the biggest conflict, it's really nice to watch a movie that holds your attention throughout, where the biggest conflict in the movie is whether or not Scott is going to win the game just being himself or a werewolf. Like there's something really great about that.
Yeah, those are the stakes. It's not that big.
There was a part of me when I watched that the first time that wanted him to be down by like 14 points going into the fourth quarter, and they're all like, okay, enough is enough. Be the wolf again. Then we get to finish with the wolf saving the day. That was the weirdo kid I was.
But it's also
I'm
nice
going to say, I think you're reading the movie wrong, but okay.
But it's showing like how, like, these guys with teamwork and stuff didn't need the wolf to do it. They just needed to kind of, work together and believe in themselves and stuff. It was there in their hearts all along. Come on. It's just great classic, kid movie stuff.
Now, would it be a bit premature for me to ask about whether or not this movie is connected to Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Bruce. I have a prepared statement.
It's weird.
Huh. Let me just get my reading glasses on.
They have a crank on the side.
Eyesight's the second thing to go.
First one's bladder.
This would have gone much more smooth if we did it the usual way. Mr. Stallone, I have a question. How come you never had a character start a nuanced dance that is tangentially related to your character at a high school dance, like the character of Teen Wolf has in the movie Teen Wolf? This week's Stallone connection is Matt Adler, who played Lewis in Teen Wolf. For those who might forget, Lewis is the character who's friends with Teen Wolf until he turns into Teen Wolf, and then he's afraid of him because of the Teen Wolfness. Matt Adler has been working steadily ever since Teen Wolf, right up to this year. Not only is Matt Adler a working actor, but he also does a lot of voiceover work in movies with varying degrees of quality, like Rango, Hop, and Kung Fu Panda 2. I'll let you be the judge of the ordering system of those. But he was also part of the ADR team on I See You, also known by the title Detox, that stars you, Sylvester Stallone. But what I really wanted to speak about today is Matt Adler's close friend and former roommate, George Clooney. They lived together when they were in their 20s, and it's reasonable to think that at the time, Matt Adler was the much more famous roommate at the time. He was in Teen Wolf and Flight of the Navigator and Dream a Little Dream, whilst George Clooney was doing walk-ons on movies like Grizzly 2 and TV shows like Street Hawk and a sitcom called Throb, which I absolutely had to look into. Throb is a syndicated sitcom which aired from September 6, 1986 to 1988, which means that a show called Throb had 2 seasons.
Wow.
It's described on IMDb as, quote, a genial sitcom about a record company exec and his attempts to discover new talent, end quote. The show's tagline, it's the 60s generation versus glitter and punk. This show is far ahead of its time because now it's the 60s generation versus the environment versus the economy versus the housing market and versus affordable college tuition. The biggest name on this show called Throb was Jan Leaves, who played Daphne on Frasier, but was also a Benny Hill girl. Look it up. It's true. I have a sort of vague memory about the show Throb, so I had to go into an IMDb user review to get the scoop. And today's scoop comes from someone who calls themselves Swart from 2000. And they write, quote, "A poorer man's WKRP in Cincinnati. No ground was broken here as the plots were formulaic and they were predictable, but it had a certain scrappiness," end quote. A poorer man's WKRP in Cincinnati? It's sort of like saying we're looking for a Jason Mantzoukas type, but even more of a scumbum. Or we want a Morgan Freeman type, but even more beloved and admired. Or we want a Matt Adler type, but even more average and whiter. And there you have it, Mr. Stallone. This week's Stallone Connection is Matt Adler. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
Oh, boy. Well, here at HMP, we got our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does Teen Wolf from 1985 fall on the Robin rating system for you?
You know, it's a great movie, man. It's one that everybody needs to see. Far from perfect, but it also feels like it is perfect because it's so far from perfect. Like it's not trying to be. This is a strong Tim Drake, if for no other reason than to see the lone movie performance of Jeff Glosser. I looked up the name of the guy who did the basketball stuff for Michael J. Fox. Strangely, looks even nerdier than Michael J. Fox. He's currently a vice principal, believe it or not. But yeah, he was a Loyola Marymount freshman. He was a Loyola Marymount freshman and agreed to do the basketball scenes.
So you got to just find a 5'2" guy who can ball.
The secret is they got a bunch of 8 feet people to play around him, so he looks short.
Ah, that's thinking. Sean, what about you?
This is my favorite werewolf movie due to the time that I saw it. There is some gay panic in this movie. It is not perfect. It is, to me, it's a high Damian Wayne.
I'm going Grayson. We're going straight to the top with this one.
Whoa, man, you are a Michael J. Fox head.
I am. I love the guy. I think he's great. He is that every man is just like, and somebody that I'm like, you know, the opposite of in so many ways. It's just, but for whatever reason, it is that kind of, it's that every man. And I love you saying it, Bruce, is that Jimmy Stewart kind of quality.
That was me.
Or that was you.
No, that was
the
Bruce.
Second was it?
No, it was
Sean.
I thought it was Sean, but I wanted to take away credit from you. I just wanted to take it away and make you mad.
It used to not make me crazy until people started saying that they came up with stuff on the show that they didn't.
No, well, listen, I'm not Bruce. Come on now.
You did. You were the one who started it, Adam.
Oh, come on now.
You did.
That seems like you're starting to.
Anytime I did it, in my defense, I honestly believe it's true. I mean,
no, I'm
not
that,
saying it to steal it.
No, I know. So is
wrong.
Adam. Adam wasn't doing it to be a conniving weasel either. He just was like, oh, I must have been me. I'm the one who came up with that.
I'm the dumb. But yeah, listen, I like this movie. Like I said, I saw it a ton as a kid. It's probably been 20 years since I've seen it, but it still held up. It brought back so many memories, so many things that it just in the recesses of your mind that shaped so much of my childhood. And you're like, oh, this is where I got so much of this crap from.
That's so cool.
It's kind of awesome seeing that sort of stuff and reliving that yet again. It felt like turning on an old album and stuff, going like.
So, Adam, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question: when you watched it, like, when's the last time you had seen Teen Wolf before this week?
Yeah, I think it was like 2005-ish.
Oh, so you were an adult the last time you saw this movie?
Yeah.
I see. Okay, because I had not seen this movie since like the 80s.
Yeah, I probably had not seen it since. I'd say it's safe to say since I graduated high school, which was 92.
Mm-hmm. And so, having that, like, having it so in my head as this perfect movie, and then watching it today or watching it yesterday and having it not be so perfect and seeing all the things that are wrong with it. it usually doesn't get me, but this one got me of like, oh, this is not the perfect thing that I thought it was.
To me, it almost had the opposite effect. I was just like, you know what? It's kind of amazing what they did with what little they clearly had.
It's true.
And like that, to me, this time watching it did make me kind of go, boy, they really had no budget for this, did they? They just didn't. There not much was in there, and they made with what they had, and with the tools that they had at their disposal. I think they did a pretty darn good job.
Agreed. For what this movie turned out to be, they did an amazing job.
This could be so awful. It really, really, you could look back on this and be like, Michael J. Fox, thank God that you were in that Back to the Future, because that Teen Wolf was so awful. You had to have something, usurp that and wipe that off the slate for you. But you don't really need that, because it's not as good as Back to the Future by any stretch of the imagination, but like it's in the pantheon of good Michael J. Fox films, isn't it?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's a second only to Back to the Future's franchise.
Absolutely. All right. So, Bruce, what are we talking about next week as Werewolf Month goes on?
Ginger snaps for the month that won't end. A month of Sundays. That's what it feels like. 5 full moon Sundays. But Ginger Snaps, the excellent Canadian female werewolf movie, or woman werewolf, or lady werewolf, girl werewolf.
That's one that I don't think I've seen since the year 2000 when it came out. And maybe 2001. Maybe I saw it slightly thereafter. But
I've never seen it.
I think you're going to like it. It's very different. This is one that your girls would have probably liked at a particular age. Maybe they might like it now even, but it's very kind of a girl-forward werewolf film that like you won't quite see coming if you haven't checked this out before. So that's Ginger Snaps. That's out there now, and we'll be covering that next week. Sean, where else might people find work on our internet stuff?
We have got another podcast called 30 Questions, and it's usually revolving around something that's Marvel or Star Wars related. So check that out. Just type 30Q into your podcatcher of choice, and we shall come up.
Indeed. We're not doing Loki 30 Questions right now just because there's just so much going on. But if our Patreon people would like, we might talk about that. If Bruce will watch a couple of the episodes, we might talk about some of those.
Yes.
Come one of these dinger zones. So patreon.com/HMP. Join in the fun, why don't you? That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking Ginger Snaps. For Sweet Sean Zakovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.